Hi, Nine. Today we're looking at persuasion in social media. Last week you looked at mostly persuasion in the news, and you looked at different news organisations and how their views may differ, and how they report differently on particular events. So today we're going to be focusing more on social media rather than the news sites. Last week you saw these two images of Dan Andrews, and you answered some questions in OneNote about them. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time first going through these two images and doing a little bit of analysis of them. Okay, so you can understand how we look closely at persuasive texts and analyze how they're trying to persuade us. So the first one is news.com.au. Victorians are continuing to back Premier Daniel Andrews despite serious failures in his government's response to the COVID pandemic. So just going through the analysis down the bottom here. On September 22nd, two news outlets reported on Dan Andrews. They both posted Facebook links to their articles, which contained images. Both articles are about how Andrews has the support of the majority of Victorian people under the stage 4 restrictions. Right, so that's just some background information about the two articles. SBS is known for its progressive and left-leaning views. Left meaning that they align more with Labor views, and Dan Andrews is Labor. It was founded with the idea that Australian media should be accessed by all regardless of age, cultural background and language. News.com.au is known for strong emotional headlines and word choices and has a more conservative viewpoint. It is owned by the same owners as other conservative news outlets. The SBS News line was it comes as the state records 28 new cases and 3 new deaths in the past 24 hours. The majority of Victorians back Daniel Andrews' coronavirus response, a new poll has shown. So we're going to do a little bit of analysis of these two reports. All right, so you'll see here we've highlighted a few things in red just to point out some language that's being used. News.com.au uses language like serious failures to cast judgment about Andrews' government and says that he has the support of Victorians despite this. This suggests that the Victorians who support him may not be aware of the failures, and news.com.au wants to highlight them. SBS News uses no judgmental or emotive language in this post and relies on statistics and information. The fact that the majority of Victorians support Andrews is shown not to be an opinion but supported by a new poll. All right, so this analysis here is just pointing out to you that it's more supported by some evidence. All right, so we're focusing on the type of language that's used in each of these that sort of highlight the position that they're taking on Dan Andrews. Now we're going to have a look at analysing the images. So you answered some questions in your OneNote about the images, so this is where you can see if you were on the right track. The image on news.com.au includes police, which reinforces the idea that Victoria is under severe lockdown. It also has lines of people with trolleys, evoking memories of panic buying that occurred earlier in the pandemic, but haven't been an issue during this second wave. The main image is an unflattering one of Daniel Andrews looking dejected. He looks sad and defeated, implying that he is not able to do the job to lead Victoria out of its current challenges. All right, so that's just sort of showing you how to analyze texts by looking at all the clues, looking at the language features, and also looking at the images, and thinking about why this particular news organization, why they've chosen those images and that language, what message they're trying to get across to people. Obviously, the message here is that they don't really approve of what Dan Andrews is doing or has done. Now looking at this similar, so same event that they're reporting on, but with SBS. The image with the SBS News article shows Daniel Andrews with a relatively clear background, wearing a mask. Oh, sorry, that's a typo there. And standing up straight. It gives the impression of competence and that he is also following the rules we are currently subjected to. All right, so that's showing Daniel Andrews in a more positive light. He's looking confident. He's wearing a mask, which is supporting his the rules that he's put in place. So showing that he's abiding by those same rules. So it's making him look like a competent leader. So just looking at why, how and why people are persuasive on social media. We know that when we go on social media, sites like Facebook, Twitter and TikTok, that we are going to see people expressing their opinions. They're going to use persuasive techniques and language, whether they are trying to express their anger, frustration, love, gratitude, amusement, fear, or if they are trying to encourage their audience to feel safe or reassured. They choose particular words to make their desired impact. This is obviously different for people who post on their private accounts, who only write or share things to their friend lists, and for people who are celebrities, politicians, professionals, or people who have a large following. People with large followings often attract both praise and attacks when they express their views. Persuasion can be done through the written word, which is something that we're going to focus on in this unit. However, with the rise in popularity of TikTok and Reels on Instagram, and to a lesser extent stories on Instagram, people use videos, footage, music and other visual mediums to express their opinions. So it's important to note that images are chosen, carefully selected by news, people that write the news, people that are expressing their opinions, for their persuasive effect as well. All right, now we're going to have a look at another tweet by, well, this is a tweet by Dan Andrews. Dan Andrews wrote this tweet on the 1st of October. It is in response to the extension of stage 4 restrictions put in place by his government. What we're going to do now is we're going to be looking at these things over here: issue, author, stakeholders, contention, tone and purpose. So when you're analysing persuasive text, you need to be able to identify all of these things. In your OneNote, I've put a table for today's lesson that you need to fill out with a definition for each of these things. Okay, so you might want to pause the video here so that you can fill out the definition in that table. So we're going to be having a look at each of these things in regards to this tweet. So the issue is what this is written in response to. So what is it about? This is phrased as a question. So the issue here is, should the stage 4 restrictions have been extended? All right, so Dan Andrews' tweet says, on the 1st of September, there were 2,352 active coronavirus cases in Victoria. Today, there are 289. The strategy is working, and that's all down to you. All right, so the author and background is obviously who wrote it and what their background is. So in this case, it's Daniel Andrews, and his background is that he's the Premier of Victoria. The stakeholders is who is impacted by this issue. So who are the people that are impacted by it, which in this case is all Victorians. The contention, what is the main argument the author is making? Or I like to think of contention as the author's opinion, their main opinion about this issue. So Dan Andrews' contention here is that the current stage 4 restrictions are working. The tone is how it is written, like how does it sound? With this example, the tone is reassuring and grateful. All right, so he's expressing he's grateful for everyone that's been doing the right thing, and he's reassuring everyone that this is working, which is also going to, encourage people to keep going with it. So the purpose, why this has been written, this might be similar to the contention. So in this case, the purpose is to reassure the Victorian people that the stage 4 restrictions are working and we should continue to follow by the rules. All right, now here's a little bit of an analysis of this tweet, and this is something that you're going to be doing a little bit of throughout this unit, is analysing some of these short tweets or things from social media. Although he only uses 25 words in this tweet, we can analyse how it has been written to persuade. So first of all, in the red, Andrews uses statistics to reinforce the idea that the stage 4 restrictions are working, as there are approximately 2,100 less cases than there were a month ago. In yellow, you can see in yellow it's been highlighted the strategy is working. This is his contention that the restrictions are working. And in blue, it's been highlighted down to you. So by using inclusive language of you, he is aiming to remind his readers that this is a group effort and that we as Victorians have all played a part in reducing these numbers. He's showing gratitude, but also reminding Victorians of their responsibility to continue to obey the rules. So this is something that we are going to be aiming for you guys to be able to work towards, to analyse, do your own analysis of, how they're persuading and why they're using these particular persuasive techniques. All right, so this analysis has described why he's using it, to show gratitude and to remind Victorians to keep going. There were lots of tweets in reply to Daniel Andrews' tweet, and they varied from supportive to abusive. The stage 4 lockdown restrictions are a controversial issue, and this 25-word tweet triggered a range of responses. Here are some of the responses to the tweet. I won't read them all out. If you are interested in reading them, you can pause the video here and have a read. But we're going to have a look at one of the responses. So this is a positive response. We have a leader in Victoria who has the guts to stand up for what he believes is right, in spite of all the negative hate-filled comments, in spite of the risks to his career from people who don't value others' lives. Learn from him. I hope one day he is Prime Minister. Thanks, Dan. All right, so here just below there is an example of an analysis of this reply. This responder, Susie, expresses her appreciation for Andrews. She uses inclusive language when she reminds the readers that we have a leader in Victoria who is willing to make personal sacrifices to ensure Victorians are safe. She repeats the phrase "in spite of" to show that what Andrews is up against, and attacks those who criticise him as people who don't value others' lives, which implies they are selfish and reckless for not agreeing with him. She uses the short sentence "learn from him" to imply that he is someone who can teach others, and expresses her hope that one day he is Prime Minister, which may encourage others to have faith in him, as he would not be representing Victoria. but Susie sees him as someone who is capable of running Australia. The hashtag #ThanksDan is also persuasive because when it is clicked on, it will take the user to other tweets that use this, reinforcing their opinion that we should feel gratitude for Daniel Andrews for what he has done for Victoria. Okay, so the coloured highlighting, you can see that it's colour coded with the tweet, so it shows you where the persuasive techniques have been used. So it's inclusive language, in spite of, that's the repetition, and so on. Okay. All right, we're going to have a look at one more, and then you guys are going to have a go at doing a little bit of analysis of a tweet. Not the written paragraph analysis, but just identifying these things in a tweet: the issue, author, stakeholders, contention, tone, and purpose. So Donald Trump wrote this tweet on the 24th of February. So this was early on, when the coronavirus pandemic had just started. It is in response to suggestions that coronavirus was a genuine concern in the USA. So Donald Trump writes, "The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. We are in contact with everyone and all relevant countries. CDC and World Health have been working hard and very smart. Stock markets starting to look very good to me." All right, so the issue is, should the US government be doing more to prevent a coronavirus outbreak in the USA? Because Donald Trump was very blasé about it all when it first happened, didn't see it as a big problem. The author and backgrounds, so the author is Donald Trump, and background, he's the President of the United States. Stakeholders, so the people who are impacted from concerning this issue, is all Americans or people travelling to the USA. Contention, so his opinion on this issue is that the United States government, headed by Trump, is controlling the coronavirus outbreak. Right, so there's nothing to be worried about, is what he's saying. His tone is confident and reassuring. So that's tone, remember, that's how it sounds, the tone that comes through. And purpose, why has he written this? To assure the citizens of the USA that there will be no negative impacts due to coronavirus, due to the actions of the government. So what was the point of all of that? We want you to recognise how much persuasive language and how many persuasive techniques are used every day by most people. If you are on the internet, particularly social media, you'll be exposed to this sort of persuasive writing. Persuasive writing is not just a tool you will use at school, but it is one that is present in your everyday life. It's important to know how to write persuasively yourself, especially when you want to get your point across, but it's equally important to recognise when it's being used and when you are being put in a position to potentially believe something that's untrue or that someone's opinion is fact. So you need to be able to distinguish between someone's opinion and the facts. We need to remember that many posts on social media are opinions. How truthful they are depends on who wrote the post, the purpose behind it, and how well informed the individual is. All right, and when we're looking at who wrote the post, we're also thinking about things like bias. So are they coming from a biased position? We shouldn't rely on what we read or see on these sites as facts without doing our own research. So what do we need to be aware of to know if we are being persuaded or manipulated to think a certain way? We need to be aware of who wrote the article and what's their background, where it was published, and does the publication have certain views they like to promote? What is the purpose of the article? What language was being used? What persuasive techniques were being used? How do they want the reader to feel about the person, group, or event they are writing about? And why do they want them to feel this way? this might link in with the purpose. So the main message here is just to not take everything that you read as gospel or as fact. You should always look at different views and different opinions, and do some research and make up your own mind about what you believe. All right, so that's something to be very aware of when you're looking on social media or reading news. Now, what you need to do is to go back to your OneNote page and complete the activities on there. There's a short tweet there for you to identify the issue, the author, contention, tone, purpose, and stakeholders. So you need to fill out the table with that information. And there's also a question there for you to answer as well.